Well, this looks like one of these things that if I saw it in the Museum of Modern Art, my first reaction, I suppose I'd be attracted by the red color and so forth, but I guess the next thing I'd do is I'd walk right up to it, to the little 3x5 card next to it, and read that, trying to learn better what it is that I'm looking at. No expert on art, but this thing has a bunch of what look like objects. And my first thought here is that, gosh, it looks like the Burgess Shale, right? It looks like something from the Cambrian explosion. Here are very tiny critters, maybe only a few centimeters long, that are lying there in the mud, fossilized for 500 million years. Except that between all the fossilized critters are these strange symbols that, kind of look like Greek letters, and then again look like they might be alien symbols. Now the whole field is peppered with these symbols, right? But if you look at the next layer down, thanks to my infrared eyeballs, if you look at the next layer down, you see that there are a lot more of these symbols. It's as if there was a heavy rain of symbols yesterday, got covered over with mud, and now you have a very sparse number of symbols. But you can see these symbols here, right? I mean, there's the delta and the cross, and I don't know, it looks like a zeta or a 7 or something like that. There aren't too many of them. There aren't too many of them. Not on this layer, but doggone it, underneath there are a lot more. It looks like, doggone, the real treasure trove of symbols has been covered up and buried. We're going to have to dig to get to that stuff. The past was more interesting than the present, at least in terms of these symbols, because there were more of them. They must have come from somewhere. Where did these symbols come from? I mean, these shapes could be anything. They could be, I don't know, I'm seeing them as fossilized prehistoric creatures, but the symbols are the work of intelligence. These may not be, but they are. And somehow somebody was scattering these things as if they'd pulled them off the books from some alien language and threw them into the ocean, and then, they were covered up. These critters came along, they died there, and then a few more symbols rained down. What an interesting scenario, huh? I guess that's what I'm seeing. It's biology. To me, it's biology. And probably it isn't biology, but that's what it looks like. It looks like elementary biology. Another thing that is striking me now is that there's kind of a paucity of colors, right? It isn't that, I mean, after all, we can see lots of different colors. We have a pretty wide range, and yet the artist here has limited him or herself to just a couple of colors. Obviously, there's the red, there's the light green, a little bit of yellow. It's all at the long wavelength end of the spectrum. The yellow is kind of sparse, but there are these little splashes of yellow through it that I hadn't seen before, as if it were snowing yellow, raining yellow. Yeah, the fact that, and also the outlines, if you will, they're in this sort of black, kind of dripped on look, this black paint with a bit of three-dimensionality to it. This painting doesn't stay where it's supposed to be in the wall. It just comes out at you a little bit. It's intruding on my personal freedoms with that black paint. It's coming out of the wall. The more that I look at it, because the more I'm looking at it, the more I decide that it's interesting. It kind of grabs my attention. It's very balanced, too. There's no center of interest, right? It's not like in a photograph where you have, a head 2/3 of the way up this way and 1/3 of the way up that way or whatever, right? It matters of proportion, balance, and all that stuff, and you have a center of interest. I don't know where the center of interest is here. Maybe it's off screen. Maybe the center of interest is actually off the painting. Maybe this is part of a triptych. Maybe this is missing the important part. It's only a piece of the puzzle. Yeah, it does tend to grow on you, I'll say that. And to be honest, modern art never has grown on me before, but it's better than most of what I see in the museums. I could make up a story to interpret this, and maybe the story would be that, well, yeah, this is the history of life. And these symbols, those are just the works of us, of humans, because symbols indicate language, indicate, conscious thought, which after all depends on language and all. And so here it is, the clues to where we came from, mushed in with the symbols that indicate that humans are involved somehow. This is picturing something that, well, just doesn't exist. except in the brain. But then again, everything only exists in the brain in terms of visual imagery, right? This guy's brain is wired differently. Now, maybe this is a representation of what he sees through that door. And what he sees through that door, you know, is some sort of parallel universe. I don't know. It doesn't look astronomical to me. And being an astronomer, I tend to see astronomical representations in all imageries. And the fact that I don't see it here probably means it isn't astronomical. But it does look like something that's really small, been blown up. Really small and blown up. Not something that, this is not an aerial view of something, right? This is something that might be like that, and now it's like that. It does produce curiosity, and my eye is certainly attracted to it, but a lot of that has to do with the very boldness of this thing. This is not gentle washes of color over, you know, I don't know, a meter by meter piece of board. It's very bold, it's direct, it's high contrast, it's got sharp delineation. I've heard that the artist thinks that if there really is extraterrestrial intelligence, which after all, looking for extraterrestrial intelligence is my day job, so I have some interest in that, that if the aliens are really out there, and if you could somehow send them this, you know, just send them a picture of this picture, right, that they might be better at appreciating it than your average Homo sapiens. It were true that they would get more out of this than I do, which they might, then that tells me something. That tells me that this is not about human activity, right? Because they won't know much about human activity now, will they? Right? So this is not about, you know, human emotions or hopes or, you know, what we're doing to the planet or what we do to one another or any of those kinds of themes. This isn't about poverty or riches or none of that. This is about something that transcends human experience. And if that's the case, then what experience is it? I mean, if it transcends human experience, then it's got to be a representation of the natural world, right? It says something about the natural world. Unless my original theory about this is right, and that this is a representation of some ancient history here on Earth, some sort of biological stratum from 500 million years ago showing the early life forms on this planet. That might interest E.T., maybe even more than us. If E.T. really is going to get more out of this than I do, this has got to be something cosmic. It's got to be something cosmic. This is not about the human condition or human experience. And in that case, this piece of art transcends everything I've seen in the Louvre. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll try to find a space for it in my living room.